Hello scientific people, how are you today? Today I have taken an initiative to take up a topic in biology, that is blood vessels. And blood vessels are of two types, arteries and veins. Blood vessels are basically the carriers of the blood, and they are of two types, arteries and veins. So in this video lecture we are going to understand what are the differences between arteries and veins. Then we would be discussing about the structures of arteries and veins, and finally the functions as well. So here in the diagram I have shown a human heart. Now these are the blood vessels. They are carrying blood from the heart to these cells. Now these are group of cells called tissues. Now these tissues are actually a part of organ. So you can consider this section to be an organ, right? Okay, so what happens is the blood from the heart is being transferred through these blood vessels called arteries. Now arteries are quite big, so arteries cannot reach actually directly to the human organ. So arteries, they actually split up. So this is an artery, and arteries, they actually split up into smaller branches called arterioles. So this is arteriole, arterioles. Now from arterioles still channelization takes place into capillaries, because arterioles are even they are smaller than the artery definitely, but arterioles also cannot supply blood to each and every part of the tissues. So they even split up into smaller blood vessels called capillaries. Now the capillaries, they actually, between the capillaries and the cells of the body, diffusion takes place and exchange of gases, exchange of nutrients takes place, and again the blood gets collected back with different composition, and they join together to form venules. So these are again the capillaries joining together to form venules. And such venules from different areas, they get collected to form a vein. So this is a vein. So from venules the blood actually enters the vein from back to the heart. So those blood vessels which actually carry the blood from the heart to the body organs, they are called arteries, and those blood vessels which carry blood back from the organs to the heart, they are called veins. Okay, now the biggest artery in our body is aorta. It's the biggest artery, and vena cava is the biggest vein. They are of course divided into two parts, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So the vein that collects the blood from the upper part of the body and finally to the heart, it is called superior vena cava, and the vein that collects the blood from the bottom part of the body below the heart and from the bottom part of the body to the heart, that vein is called inferior vena cava. Okay guys, now let's understand what is happening over here. So we have blood cells called RBCs, which are disc-like, biconcave in structure. So these are red blood cells. They are also called erythrocytes, and generally artery carry oxygenated blood. It is not always the case, there are exceptions, but right now let us understand that the artery carry only oxygenated blood. So what happens is oxygen is present inside the red blood cell. So this is oxygenated red blood cell that carries blood, that carries oxygen from the heart into the artery to the different cells over here. So that red blood cell actually reaches over here, which contains oxygen. Now this oxygen gets diffused through the porous walls. There are small pores on the surface of the capillaries. So from that porous pores, the oxygen diffuses in, and the carbon dioxide which is present over here, which is a byproduct of the respiration, again goes back into the red blood cell. So now after the exchange of the gases, we have red blood cell that contains carbon dioxide, So those red blood cells, they will proceed further into venules, and now inside the vein you have red blood cells that carry carbon dioxide. Now that red blood cell would be proceeding further to the heart. So in this way the process actually takes place. Not only the gaseous exchange, but the proteins and other things, they are also getting exchanged over here, because that are the basic requirements of the cell. Okay, now when this blood, which is deoxygenated, comes over here, the heart actually sends it to the lungs and to the kidneys for filtration as well. So it is not always the case that vein carry deoxygenated blood and the artery carry oxygenated blood, but the proper definition of artery is that those blood vessels that they carry blood from the heart to the body organs, they are called arteries, and the blood vessels which carry the blood from the body organs to the heart, they are called veins. Usually the veins carry carbon dioxide containing blood, and the arteries, they contain oxygenated blood. There are exceptions. So let's continue our discussion on the next sheet, and here we can see this is a cross-sectional view of an artery, and this is a cross-sectional view of a vein. The structure of arteries and veins are similar, meaning they are all made up of 3 layers. The width of the layers in each only varies, otherwise naming, structure, everything is same. So the innermost layer is called Tunica Interna, which is made up of squamous epithelial cells. The middle layer is made up of tunica, is also called tunica media, which is made up of smooth muscles, and the outer layer of arteries and veins, they are made up of tunica externa, and they are made up of elastic fibers and connective tissues which help in joining the arteries and veins to the muscles. Okay, but the major difference between the structure of arteries and veins is the presence of valves. So the valves, they actually prevent the backflow of the blood, and the valves, they are only present in veins, they are not present in the arteries, and the valves are actually called pocket valves, or they are also called venous valves, pocket valves or venous. These valves, they actually prevent the backflow of the blood. Now they are bicuspid in nature, that means they are made up of 2 flaps, they are bicuspid, meaning 2 flaps. So let's understand the meaning of valves over here. You can consider both my hands like this, and when the blood actually comes from the bottom, so the valves, they open like this. So this is called 2 flap structure or bicuspid structure, like this. They open in the upward direction. And you can also see that the diameter, or the part in which the blood flows, is greater over here and smaller over here. This diameter is called lumen. So this diameter, it is called lumen. You can see that the lumen of the artery is smaller than that of the vein, and more amount of muscle cells, more amount of elastic fibers are present over here, that makes the artery more stronger compared to that of the vein, right? Okay, so let's sum up our discussion over here and write down the main points. The inner layer, the innermost layer, is called tunica interna, which is basically made up of squamous epithelium. The middle layer, I have shown it by different colors over here. The middle layer is called tunica media. Now that is actually made up of smooth muscles, and the outer layer it is called tunica externa. That is made up of elastic fibers as well as connective tissues. Okay, some other important points. Why the structure of the artery is actually quite thick compared to that of the vein? It is because the artery carries blood from the heart to the body organs. So the heart actually pumps the blood with very large pressure so that the blood can reach every part of the body. So the blood in the artery flows with very high pressure. So for that high pressure, the walls of the artery should be very, very strong. That's why the walls are quite thicker than that of the vein. And here in vein, after the exchange of the gases as well as the exchange of the nutrients and the waste products as well, the vein collects the blood from the body organs and back to the heart. So the blood, when it flows back to the heart, it is in a very low pressure compared to that of the here, and so low pressure does not require very thick walls. So the walls of the veins are thinner as compared to the artery. So the presence of veins is superficial. That means veins can be seen on the surface as well. So we can see the veins over here. Veins are superficial. These are the veins of my body, and veins are present on the surface, whereas arteries are found deep inside the body. So when doctors actually give you injection, right, the injections are actually given in vein, not in the artery, because veins are superficial. You might be amazed to sometimes see the color. It may be hardly noticeable in this light. Sometimes the veins, they appear greenish in color. So it is not actually greenish in color, it's light blue, and that is due to the presence of impurities and the carbon dioxide in the red blood cell of the blood. So the appearance of the arteries and veins are actually due to the presence of or the absence of oxygen. If the red blood cells, they contain oxygen, then the blood would be very, very bright red in color. But if the blood is actually full of carbon dioxide and other waste products, its appearance will change, right? So some of the important things that I told you about the veins and arteries, and that we are going to list it down. So these are the basic structure and the differences, and we are going to note down the differences as well. Let's continue our discussion and jot down all the points that we had already discussed. Now, if you want to write down the differences between the arteries and veins, the first major difference between the arteries and veins are, arteries, they carry blood from the heart to the body organs. And over here they carry blood from body organs back to the heart. Second most important points is the presence of valves actually. Valves are also present here. Okay, we might be having some confusion about the presence of valves in the venules and capillaries as well. We know that capillaries, they join together to form venules, and venules, they join together to form veins. Some of the discussions says that there are presence of MMVs, microscopic venous valves, in capillaries as well as venules, but this is still debatable. We don't exactly know about the presence of valves over here, but some of the discussions in some of the papers, they do say that. But still very not concrete about that, right? So in the bigger veins, the valves are definitely present, and we know that the biggest vein in our body is vena cava, and the biggest artery in our body is aorta, right? Okay. Third one, most of the arteries, they carry oxygenated blood. I mean all except one. Oxygenated blood, except pulmonary artery. Okay. And this I have already discussed in one of the videos where I was actually talking about human heart. Maybe you can have a look over there. And here most of the veins carry deoxygenated blood. That means in their red blood cells they have got carbon dioxide in them, except pulmonary vein is actually an artery. We are just giving the name. I mean, it carries oxygenated blood, but as per the first definition, it is a vein because it brings back the blood from the organs to the heart. So from lungs to the heart. So these two are actually discussed in the human hearts. Maybe you can see over there. The walls of the arteries are thin. Walls are thick. And blood flows with very high pressure. Here walls are comparatively thin. And blood flows under low pressure. The presence of the arteries, they are found deep inside the body. They are present on the surface, veins, or superficial, you can also write down. On the surface. So these are some of the important points that we have jotted down over here. Now you need to understand one thing about vein. Suppose these are our legs. My drawing, guys, is not very good, but anyways. So suppose these are our legs, and you might be wondering how the blood actually goes up, right? So what happens is, here is our heart. And from the artery, the blood actually goes down, definitely, because the heart pushes and the blood goes down to all the tissues over here. But you might be wondering, after the exchange of gases, this become the vein. How does the blood actually rise up against the gravity? So that is due to the presence of valves actually. So valves, they actually push the blood in the upward direction, so the blood actually rises up back to the heart. So the presence of valves, they actually push the blood in the upward direction like this, and that's why the blood against the gravity rises up. So guys, hopefully you like my explanation. Do subscribe to my channel if you have not done so, and if you have any doubts, do comment in the comment section. Thanks for watching the video.